The Schaumburg Village Board meeting to order. The first item we have tonight is it's actually a public hearing that is taking place. And this is a public hearing for the establishment of the Nitty property, Schaumburg Development Dormant Special Service Area. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Bishke.
Present.
Trustee Madej.
Present.
Trustee Dunham.
Present.
Trustee Sullivan.
Present.
Trustee Clare.
Present.
Trustee Kozak.
Here.
President Daly.
Present. All present and accounted for. The first item, or the only item on the agenda for this evening, for this hearing, is explanation of the Nitty Schaumburg Development Dormant SSA. And I would ask the village attorney, if he wouldn't mind, please giving us an explanation.
Okay, so before inviting public comment during this public hearing as to the SSA, a brief explanation of what it is and what it's for is appropriate. The proposed area of the special service area includes the Nitty Schaumburg Development Subdivision, which is generally located between Summit Drive and Plum Grove Road, and between Weathersfield Way and Wise Road in the village of Schaumburg. The entire property is located within the R-6C Cluster Single Family Residence District zoning classification in the village. The purpose of the SSA is to fund the village of Schaumburg's cost of maintaining, repairing, constructing, and/or replacing the common areas on the above described property only in the event that the owners of the property fail to maintain, repair, reconstruct, and/or replace the common areas within the property, stormwater management improvements, landscaping, bike paths, homeowners association park, retaining walls, fences, wetland maintenance, and improvements as required by the Village of Schaumburg Code. The annual tax proposed, only if necessary, is that the dormant SSA would allow for the levy of a direct annual tax at a rate not to exceed $168.35 per $100 of equalized assessed value, or EAV, of the property in the Nitty Schaumburg Development Special Service Area 1 for each year which the village is required to expend funds relative to the special services, so long as the common areas in Nitty Schaumburg Development exist. As taxes will not be levied until such time, if any, as the village actually expends funds for the special services, it is currently unknown as to the actual amount of the taxes that will need to be levied for the initial year, if any, for which taxes will be levied within the development and the special service area 1. However, any such initial tax levy shall not exceed the maximum tax rate of $168.35 per $100 of equalized assessed value of the property. The aforementioned taxes would be in addition to all other taxes provided by law and must be levied pursuant to the provisions of the Illinois Property Tax Code. That, in essence, is what this dormant SSA is and what it's for. Now it would be appropriate to solicit public comment at the hearing.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to open this up for any public comment that anyone having business regarding this particular item is welcome to step forward and speak on it, please. Okay, seeing none, there is no additional public comment. I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's it, we're done with that one. Okay. We're now going to move on to the regular Schaumburg Village Board meeting.
Wait, the clerk
Yep.
needs to get queued up.
Okay, so we're now going to call the regular Schaumburg Village Board meeting to order for Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. I do want to make a quick reminder, which I forgot to do, is if you have a cell phone or any electronic device, please turn it off. We do not wish to hear it. First item is a roll call. If the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Bishke.
Present.
Trustee Madej.
Present.
Trustee Dunham.
Present.
Trustee Sullivan.
Present.
Trustee Clare.
Present.
Trustee Kozak.
Here.
President Daly.
Present. All present and accounted for. I would like to ask Trustee Madej if he would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Audience, please rise.
Thank you, Trustee Madey. Next item is the approval of minutes from June 22nd, 2021.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Keep forgetting we don't have to do
Nays.
counts. A roll call at each one.
But you need nays.
Pardon?
You need nays.
Hell,
Ask
any,
for
yes,
any
thank you.
opposed.
Got to go back to asking for this. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Looking for approval on the June 22nd, 2021 executive session minutes. Any questions, comments?
Move to approve. Second.
A motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of expenditures for $5,892,465.88.
Move to
Questions,
approve the
comments?
expenditures as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the expenditures as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Bischke.
Aye.
Trustee Madey.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Trustee Clare.
Aye.
Trustee Kozak.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Liquor license requests, we have none for this evening. Consent agenda. The consent agenda will be read in its entirety, voted on as one motion to approve. If you wish to discuss an item further, please indicate that when the item is read by the village clerk so that it can be removed from the consent agenda and discussed further under committee reports. Otherwise, all items will be approved as one, as presented on the consent agenda in one motion to approve. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Correspondence. A, the motion would be to approve a request from the Schaumburg Firefighters Benevolent Association to hold a raffle on September 18th, 2021 at Olympic Park located at 1675 Old Schaumburg Road. B, the motion would be to approve the request from the Boys and Girls Club of Elgin to hold a raffle on July 29th, 2021 at Top Golf located at 2050 Progress Parkway to grant a variance to Code Section 117.31 and to waive the fidelity bond requirement. C, the motion would be to approve the request from Schaumburg Dance Ensemble to hold a raffle on August 21st, 2021 at the Al Larson Prairie Center for the Arts located at 201 Schaumburg Court and to waive the fidelity bond requirement. D, the motion would be to approve the request from Schaumburg Dance Ensemble to hold raffles December 3rd and 12th, 2021 at the Al Larson Prairie Center for the Arts located at 201 Schaumburg Court and to waive the fidelity bond requirement. E, the motion would be to approve the request from Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association of Schaumburg to hold a raffle at Septemberfest on September 5th, 2021 at Septemberfest located at 201 Schaumburg Court and to waive the fidelity bond requirement. 2, liquor licenses. The motion would be to approve the request from Mr. Justin Sinkowitz of Schaumburg Park Foundation for 7 Class D one-day liquor licenses for Church Street, Clearwater Capital Partners, PRP International, Village Tavern Grill, WT Group, Hampton Inn, and Pollyanna Brewing Company for the Lynx Technology Cup golf outing on Wednesday, August 11th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Schaumburg Golf Club located at 401 North Roselle Road. B, the motion would be to approve the request from Mr. Joseph Podlask of the Trickster Cultural Center for one Class D one-day liquor license for the Arts and Crafts Family Fun Days on Saturday, July 31st, 2021, from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. at Trickster Cultural Center located at 190 South Roselle Road. C, the motion would be to ratify the request from Mr. Todd Winger of the Schweiker Preservation Trust for one Class D one-day liquor license for the outdoor jazz concert on Friday, June 25th, 2021, from 6:30 p.m. until 8 p.m., located at 635 Meacham Road. 3, Engineering and Public Works Committee. The motion would be to approve an architectural consultant pool for professional services for the year 2021-22, for the year 2022-23, and for the year 2023-24. B, the motion would be to authorize participation in the Sourcewell contract and award the purchase of a replacement Pierce Fire Engineering to McQueen Emergency Products of Aurora, Illinois, in the total amount of $735,420. C, the motion would be to authorize participation in the Sourcewell contract and award purchase of a Bobcat and trailer to Atlas Bobcat of Elk Grove, Illinois, in the amount of $112,348. D, the motion would be to authorize participation in the Sourcewell contract and award the purchase of 3 replacement Ford Transit Connect wagons to National Auto Fleet Group of Watsonville, California, in the amount of $90,918. E, the motion would be to award the bid for the water main relocation at Woodfield Mall to the lowest responsible bidder, Morrow Sewer Construction, Inc. of Des Plaines, Illinois, in the amount of $193,948. F, the motion would be to approve an engineering consultant pool for professional engineering services for the fiscal years 2021-22, 2022-23, and 2023-24. G, the motion would be to authorize the village manager and village clerk to execute an agreement for supplemental engineering services and with Chastain and Associates, LLC of Schaumburg, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $309,234, and approve the required resolution. H, the motion would be to approve an agreement for the year 2021-22, 90 North Schaumburg TIF Project Management Services with Chastain and Associates, LLC of Schaumburg, Illinois, for an amount not to exceed $139,356.80, and approve the required resolution. I, the motion would be to approve an agreement for the small cell permit review assistance with Civil Tech Engineering Incorporated of Itasca, Illinois, in the amount of $70,599, and approve the required resolution. J, the motion would be to approve a change order for the 2020 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG Sidewalk Gap Program with Schroeder & Schroeder, Inc. of Schaumburg of Skokie, Illinois, in the amount of $56,387.50, and approve the required resolution. K, the motion would be to award a bid for traffic signal Opticom maintenance to H&H Electric Company of Franklin Park, Illinois, for a term of 1 year with 3 optimal 1-year extensions not to exceed the approved budget. L, the motion would be to direct staff to work with Independent Energy Consultants, IEC, to pursue the price match option, issue an REP, and present the results to the Engineering and Public Works Committee. 9, Finance, Legal, Administrative, and General Government. The motion would be to approve the Finance Department monthly report for May 2021. B, the motion would be to approve membership in the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, and that the membership dues in the amount of $3,700 be paid. C, the motion would be to approve continued participation in Meet Chicago Northwest and authorize the village manager to make the payment equalizing 10% of the 4% hotel motel tax revenue for the year 2021-22. D, the motion would be to approve a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute a First Amendment to the lease agreement between the Village of Schaumburg and ATC Indoor DAS LLC for the indoor distributed antenna system at the Schaumburg Hotel and Convention Center. E, the motion would be to approve a resolution amending the 2021 Renaissance Hotel and Convention Center business plan to include the renovations of the food and beverage outlets and allocate $1.2 million of the proceeds from the American Rescue Plan Act to fund the projects. F, the motion would be to approve a resolution authorizing a Class 6B tax incentive for 2233 West Street, LLC, located at 500 Commerce Drive. 5, Transportation Committee. The motion would be to authorize the village manager to execute a license agreement with Johnny's Cafe Mart, LLC of Wooddale, Illinois, to operate the coffee vendor service and custodial services at the Schaumburg Commuters Rail Facility and approve the required resolution. B, the motion would be to direct staff to establish a 3-week mowing schedule as the standard of maintenance for the National Gas Pipeline Company of America property. C, the motion would be to direct staff to send a letter to the PACE Board of Directors providing feedback on the Driving Innovation Plan. 6, Planning, Building, and Development Committee. The motion would be to endorse a zoning code amendment relative to signage on public service objects and refer the amendment to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a public hearing. B, the motion would be to adopt a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute an agreement with the Office of the State Fire Marshal to operate and maintain a local elevator safety program. C, the motion would be to direct staff to continue the temporary outdoor dining permit process utilized during the pandemic through October 31st, 2021. D, the motion would be to direct staff to draft a code amendment eliminating entertainment licenses and creating an amusement surcharge license. E, the motion would be to endorse a zoning code amendment relative to zoning-related public notice signs and refer the amendment to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a public hearing. 7, Plan Commission. The motion would be to approve a setback variation accessory structure pool for 321 Bramble Lane. 8, Zoning Board of Appeals. The motion would be to approve an amendment to Municipal Code Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154 Zoning pertaining to drive-through restaurants. 9, Project Review Group. The motion would be to approve a site plan amendment, facade improvements, and Woodfield Regional Design Center design review for Hyatt Place, 1851 McCormick Parkway. 10, Resolutions. The motion would be to adopt as Resolution R21-052, authorizing the village manager to execute a First Amendment to the lease agreement between the Village of Schaumburg and ATC Indoor DAS LLC for indoor distribution antenna system at the Schaumburg Hotel and Convention Center. B, the motion would be to adopt as resolution number R-21-053, amending the 2021 business plan for Renaissance Hotel and allocating $1.25 million of American Rescue Plan Act proceeds to complete planned upgrades to food and beverage outlets at the Renaissance Hotel and Convention Center that were delayed due to the pandemic. C, the motion would be to adopt as resolution number R21-054, approving and authorizing a 6B classification for 500 Commerce Drive, Schaumburg, Illinois, 2233 West Street, LLC. D, the motion would be to adopt as resolution R21-055, authorizing the village manager and village clerk to execute an agreement for supplemental engineering services with Chastain and Associates, LLC. E, the motion would be to adopt as resolution number 21-056, authorizing the village manager and village clerk to execute an agreement for the year 2021-22 90 North Schaumburg TIF Project Management Services with Chastain and Associates LLC. F, the motion would be to adopt as Resolution R21-057, authorizing the village manager and village clerk to execute an agreement for small cell permit review assistance with Civiltech Engineering, Inc. G, the motion would be to adopt as Resolution number R21-058, authorizing the village manager to execute a change order for the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Sidewalk Gap Program with Schroeder and Schroeder, Inc. H, the motion would be to adopt as Resolution R21-059, authorize village manager to execute the Illinois Elevator Safety Program agreement between the Village of Schaumburg and the Office of the State Fire Marshal. I, the motion would be to adopt as Resolution number R21-060, approving and authorizing the execution of Addendum 2 to the Schaumburg Commuter Rail Facility Coffee Vendor Space and Custodial Services License Agreement between the Village of Schaumburg and Johnny's Cafe Mart LLC. 11, ordinances. The motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 21-071, amending Title 15 Land Usage, Chapter 154 zoning of the Municipal Code pertaining to drive-through restaurants. B, the motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 21-072, granting a setback variation accessory structure pool 321 Bramble Lane. C, the motion would be to waive first reading and adopt as ordinance number 21-073, granting a site plan amendment, facade improvements, and Woodfield Regional Center design review for Hyatt Place, 1851 McConnor Parkway. This concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you very, very much for reading that.
That was a long one.
It's a very long one, yes, so deeply thank you for that one. So, thank you very much. Look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as has been read.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion and
Second.
second. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please do me one more favor and do the roll call?
Trustee Bischke.
Aye.
Trustee Madej.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Trustee Clare.
Aye.
Trustee Kozak.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you very much. Committee reports. There is no items under committee reports. Comments from the audience. This is a time at which if you have matters pertinent towards the Village of Schaumburg, you're welcome to come forward. Please give us your name, address for the record, and then hold forth. So, yes, you have something. Yes, please come up to the podium. Sorry. There is a sign-in sheet there, so if you would give us your name and address on there, we'll wait. Take your time. And then state your name and address for the record when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Zachary Scalafini, and I reside at 304 Menden Lane. My main question pertains to the spending of the American Rescue Plan Fund toward the renovations of food and beverages at the Renaissance Hotel. I wanted to ask questions on what particular renovations and upgrades will be made with this money, as seeing that 1.1 million, if I am correct, dollars is quite a lot of money. And I wanted to make sure these are actually pertinent upgrades that are going to go to upgrading things that are needed for the place to run. Pertaining to that, could we put this money toward a much better use than as a spending toward a hotel upgrade, whereas hotels are in big demand this season and will be in big demand if anyone's been catching up with the news. And if these upgrades are not pertinent to the safety and or the running more efficiently, and are just cosmetic, ornamental, and could be run without this $1.1 million Recommended Street Plan Fund, I will suggest that if we are to receive this money, we should put it toward more permanent programs and services than a hotel, which is going to be in high demand regardless if it serves the highest quality fare and food. That's my questions I want to put forward to you. And I want to make sure that if we're going to put this through, and we want to ask if, is there a better place to put this money, or could this hotel survive without the renovations? That was my question.
Okay, so I may turn some of this over to get further discussion on this, but when was the last time you were in the hotel?
I would say this May 23rd.
Oh, okay, so you're recently in there, all right. So the intent of the use of these funds, and there's a total of $9.8 million that the village will be receiving, that's split over 2 years, 4.6 now, 4.6 is, or 4.6 and whatever it is, 4.2 or something, the rest of it received next May. At any rate, we have been wanting to upgrade the Salmon Harry's. As you notice, that's really no longer functioning as a restaurant. It had some difficulties over the last 4 or 5 years in maintaining any kind of clientele. So part of it is to renovate that area, that space, create it into a more usable restaurant space that people coming to the hotel will actually use it more than what's been in the past. The area outside of the, what I'll call between the restaurant and the open area, the seating area, is to renovate that kind of whole area and make it more friendly for people. And then also the, what I'll call the lounge area, where the beaded curtains are, and that is also to work on renovating that space. It seems like that got a little higher use. Maybe it needs some better. So the whole package is to renovate that whole entire space. The idea is to do that now before the hotel really gets too far, too busy, and then have an opportunity or lose an opportunity to garner additional funds, and of course make the clientele happy that show up and be able to have a place inside the hotel where they're able to go. So that's the main reason for it. Is there anything you can think to add to that?
Well, sure. The, excuse me just a minute. Salmon Harry's was a nice place to go when it first was established. But as time passed, there was a perception that by people coming to the hotel for the various athletic events and other kinds of things that, gee, we're interested in getting a hamburger and and a soda with our kids and so forth, and Salmon Harry's was a great place to go for people that are willing to spend more money, but folks that were, on a family budget or whatever, were not using it to the capacity that it should have been. And the area that President Daley is suggesting behind the beaded curtains and so forth is called the Gathering. And that too was only open at certain hours. So this is an attempt to basically redesign the whole thing to make it more customer friendly, more price friendly, and more, generate more activity. And right now, with the pandemic, the construction costs are lower than they would normally be, and we felt that it was a good opportunity to get that work done now in anticipation of the hotel business coming back, and it's coming back in a big way. Mecum, I believe, has committed to another auto auction later this year, and if you drive by there on the weekend, it's starting to be very heavily populated. So I think we're taking advantage of appropriate times and so forth. There was a lot of thought that went into how we were going to allocate these funds, and this seems to be a pretty good idea time-wise to get it done now.
May I ask how one came to the figure that it'll be cheaper during the construction costs will be cheaper during these times, as lumber costs have increased, if one has watched the news.
Lumber costs have, but labor hasn't, and I don't know that, how much of a factor lumber's gonna be.
The lumber costs spiked and went back down, so it's back down to normal.
I would then like to clarify that many of these upgrades are going to be cosmetic, and as to not pertaining to better sprinklers or better pipes or better
Well,
equipment.
The building is sprinklered to the extent that it needs to be, and I think the fire chief's here, he can possibly address that, so I don't know that we need to upgrade the sprinkler system or the alarm systems at this point, so yes, most of it is, or much of it is going to be cosmetic, and much of it is redesigned to make it more user-friendly, as I said.
I would then say that I would almost argue that this 1.1 million price tag is too much for just cosmetic upgrades.
Well, too much in what respect? What expertise do you have that would enable you to say that with conviction,
Well-
other than supposition?
I would say that cosmetic upgrades, as you've said they are, they don't add to the functionality of the restaurant. They don't add to the speed of which burgers get put out. They don't add to the speed of which servers could get it to your table. They don't bring down the price as of how much that burger costs. I could see the point as no one wants to go eat in I could imagine if this is a rundown restaurant as you're describing, you might have to upgrade it, but if there's no holes in the seats, if it's a clean restaurant, I would say that the decor would have to be less invested into. I mean, there could be compromises where $500,000 could be spent instead of 1.1 million.
Well, I did not say that it was run down. What I said was that these enhancements or these upgrades are to promote more use. And I think if you know anything about restaurants at all, you know that about every 5 to 7 years, most restaurants remodel, redesign, refit, and so forth. So this is a pretty normal cycle.
It's been 15 years since the restaurant, that area was done at all. So it's not a cosmetic change, it's a gut. So it's going to be totally remodeled, that whole area.
I could see the thought process in this. I would only ask that we consider the price, if we are going to spend money on this, that we should determine how much money we could spend it as well. I could see if the safety is maintained, if all the codes are followed as to food quality for the state of Illinois, and I could see if there's no slivers in the chairs, if the place is reasonable, you would sit down there and want to eat. The question as of color or style really shouldn't be a question, since that doesn't really reflect much of the overall experience of eating the meal. That's why I'm saying a compromise where there could be reupholstered furniture. There could be a lowering of the cost instead of a total redo. If it's not to that point as one is described here, people described here, I think that a compromise where a repair or rejuvenation could be done instead of just a total regut, and I would almost say that would be not needed than what's being prescribed. Now, I'm not saying no money should go to this, but 1.1 million seems a lot of money to put into what seems to be cosmetic upgrades that won't increase the speed. I understand people or efficiency or the overall performance at a restaurant. I think that money should be put toward it, but we need to really look where could $600,000 go to besides velvet couches or velvet seating or mahogany tables.
I don't think we said anything about velvet couches or mahogany tables, did we?
Mr. Gentleman, I'm trying to make a point. I only ask that we look forward, look into where else this money could be done and try to be.
And that's what's been done. That's what the solution that by the hotel individuals and by staff that have come back with and presented this to us and said this is what a remodel will take. If you've done any remodeling recently yourself, you'll know that things are expensive. It's not cheap, but simple bathroom remodel can cost you $20,000. So, this is reasonable cost to bring something that's 15 years out of date up to date, and you can't just go in and recover. You can't just go in and replace carpeting. In this case, it needs a full remodel, and that's what we're intending to do at this point. And the price tag is reasonable based upon construction costs that we've and people we've talked to.
And I would only ask that there be more effort put into this besides tonight. I would ask that there be more reaching out toward how we can lower this price, if
Okay.
not to half the cost, but to closer it down. I do believe in the thriftiness of what we could spend here. I don't wish to argue this point anymore, but I'll only say that if we could put more effort into trying to find solutions instead of just totally starting over from an over standpoint, which who's not to say that in 5 years or 10 years it's going to go out of style again, and we have to do
We
this whole
probably
process
will.
again.
In 10 years, we probably will remodel the place again.
Then I would say that this is a waste of village money.
That's.
I'm not going to argue this
but you're-
anymore, sir, I'm
you know,
sorry.
we're not in the hotel, we're not hotel experts. Hotels get remodeled roughly every 10 years. So this is not an unusual, typical remodel, and we're listening to the experts in that as to what needs to be done here in order to continue to make this a viable hotel.
Excuse me, Brian, how long has staff been working on this?
Well, this particular renovation is programmed as part of a schedule of renovations for the property over a period of years. This particular renovation was originally scheduled, I believe, for 2018, and has been deferred a couple of times. It was most recently scheduled to take place in 2020, but because of the decline in business at the property, and also because of the very significant impact on the revenue of the hotel, we deferred it yet again. And so now, as President Daley and Trustee Dunham have mentioned, we've chosen to proceed with this project with the hope that we will get it completed before business at the property fully restores, and that it will be ready for those customers when they come back. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that this is an explicitly authorized purpose of these funds under the federal rules that have been established. And so that is the reason it was recommended to the board. And it's the reason the board has approved to move forward with the project. To your point, we will continue to be judicious with the use of village funds. We will scrutinize the project in an attempt to make it as efficient as possible and make sure that we're being responsible and good stewards. But it is a project that needs to be completed. And so we think this is an ideal time and an ideal opportunity to move forward.
And one other question, how long has staff been working on the specifics, staff or consultants been working on the specifics of this remodel?
Oh, I would say probably 4 years, I think. We worked with designers and solicited architects to help look at the remodeling of this project. So it has been studied quite a bit.
Okay, so the comment that the gentleman made concerning, not thinking ahead and so forth really doesn't apply in this case, does it?
The project has been very thoughtfully planned.
Any
I think
further?
that's the answer.
One last remark would be, if one would think that a renovated restaurant would bring back business to what has already been described as a really low revenue hotel, you mentioned that the hotel's been suffering with revenue, if I was correct?
Well, during the pandemic, yes, but prior to that, the hotel was doing great, had an occupancy of in the 70% range, so.
Then I would also like to finish my point with, if it is 70% full and there's one restaurant in a hotel, I'm not going to say we shouldn't renovate the restaurant, but we should look into better alternatives than just gutting it out. That is my view, and I think.
I failed, you keep hitting on the same thing, and I think we've pointed out that what's the alternatives? We're looking to make this restaurant viable. We have a $225 million hotel and convention center, and we're looking to spend over $1 million in some renovations for the restaurant, which is normal, standard practice. There is nothing unusual about this. There's nothing different. We're trying to make the restaurant
Mr. Daly, I would ask
viable.
that, then once again, I would ask that once the restaurant is opened and a year has passed, we should graph how much business growth has affected the hotel and the restaurant itself to see if these renovations were worth it or if they're just ornamental, purely ornamental and no other
That
reason.
will be reviewed over time, but not in a single year. You won't get a payback for that kind of money in a single year. It's a payback over the period of the next 10 years.
Which we'd have to remodel again and just be back where we
Probably
started.
end up remodeling, just like we have to remodel and replace all the carpeting in a hotel after 10 years because of wear and tear and everything else. The same thing with the rooms. So I think that
Effectively,
what
you're
you're failing to
telling me-
understand is you have no expertise on running of a hotel. Neither do I.
So we're
I'm
both
going
equally
by the experts
so we're
that
both
are
equally
telling us.
unqualified.
Tom, I think we've gone about as far.
I
as
would like to
we need
finish
to.
with saying that I
I
believe,
thank you for your comments. Anything further?
I would like to thank the board for listening to my opinion today, and I thank you all for your time. I look forward to making more opinions in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close comments from the audience, move on to a council report.
The only thing I have, Mayor, is that although it's not on the agenda, we do have need to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation, and I will ask for the appropriate motion when we get to that point. We will not be reconvening to take any action.
Okay, thank you.
I have nothing else.
All right, President's report. I only have one item. This is from, maybe people will recognize this name, Vince Wroblewski, at least for those that have been around for a while. Wrote me this nice little note saying, "Dear Mayor Daley, the Engineering and Public Works Department recently completed the rehabilitation work on Salem Drive. They milled the inside lanes and provided an asphalt overlay. Their crews did a professional job in providing a smooth asphalt surface that will extend the life of the road. This was accomplished with very little disruption to the neighbors and the motoring public." And it's from Vince Wroblewski, who is former Director of Engineering with the Village of Schaumburg. He called me and talked about how impressed he was with the firm that was out there doing the work. He, of course, being an engineer, he had to go over and take a look at it and see what they were doing. And so he came back and he proceeded, if you've known Vince, he's kind of a detail-oriented guy. I think most engineers are. And he proceeded to describe a lot of what was being done, which was all very interesting. And I asked him to send us a note. So nice work to Engineering and Public Works Department getting that done. So thank you. That is all I have for this evening. Manager's report.
I do have a report this evening. I just want to report 3 items to the board and to the members in the audience. First and foremost, the manager's office has welcomed 2 new staff members to our office in the past few weeks. First, Andrew Buckwinkler is a new intern in our office. He'll be interning with us for 2 years while he gets his master's degree at Northern Illinois University. He'll be sitting kind of in the front row, close to Marilyn's office, so you'll see him around, and I think he'll be at some meetings in the future. So I hope to get the board an opportunity to meet him in person. And then second, Tracy Pulaski started with us on Monday. She is the replacement or successor for Colleen Stroyman. She'll be working as an administrative secretary in our office, and she comes to us from the Batavia School District. So we're proud to have both of them, and hopefully the board will welcome them when they get an opportunity to see them or meet them in the near future. Second, I just want to remind members of the board and members of the public that the Boys and Girls Club is having a fundraiser at Topgolf on July 29th. This is a fundraiser that will directly benefit the teen center that we have here in Schaumburg. I'm looking forward to attending and hope to see many of you there as well. And then finally, I want to extend my congratulations to Allison Albrecht from our staff. Allison finished her master's degree in communications from Purdue University in May. She was very dedicated and very committed to finishing this even during the pandemic. So congratulations, Allison, to you, and good luck in the future.
Congratulations.
And that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item is an unfinished business item that was actually deferred from about a month ago. Is the petitioner here? Yes, okay, why don't you come forward. As a reminder, this item was, had come as a recommendation to deny request by the petitioner regarding service from Village Water. It's not currently served by Village Water. So, and this went before, what committee did this go before?
BW.
Engineering and Public Works, of course. Went before them, and there was a recommendation, so who do we want to get some comments from first? You want to take it? Okay, so I'm going to ask Trustee Madej, kind of give us a short recap, and then we'll ask the petitioner what they want to talk about.
Okay, basically, this property is located at 1312 Laurel Lane. It's in the Meadow Mills subdivision. The development of the subdivision it does predate the incorporation of the village and was originally served by private wells. The subdivision is now served by village sewer and partially served by village water. The property owners want to construct a single-family home and would like to be served by a private well. This went through few committees, meetings. I think the last time was 5/20/2021 in Engine EPW, and it was basically denied because of the neighborhood was surveyed in 2007 to determine if there would be an interest in the village installing water mains, which ultimately was no interest. And this was done through creation of a couple other places through special service areas, taxing districts. Anything else, more details, we can ask the director of EPW.
Okay. Anything, Director of Engineering or Public Works?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would add is that, this was discussed at the EPW committee meeting, and I think that there was some understanding of the situation that the petition was in.
Correct.
And staff was directed to conduct another survey of the area property owners to see if there was interest now in potentially having the village establish a new special service area to try and extend water into this area. So that's going to be our focus moving forward, subject to final decision of the board this evening.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead, give us your name and address for the record, and proceed.
My name's Renata McLean. I live at 199 East Nergy Road in Roselle. And I am the owner of 1312 Laurel Lane in Schaumburg, and this parcel has been in the family for 43 years. Last May, as Mark said, at the Engineering and Public Works meeting, there was a question regarding the true costs of drilling a well versus excavating for the village water. I have an estimate in writing of $112,000 for the excavation and installation of the village water, and two quotes for well companies at $20,000. The difference is higher than $90,000, and this is to have water for only one home. The expense is due to connecting water to one home as well as for the building of the line for future use for the neighborhood. The figure is disproportionate to the disproportionate cost. Having to hook up water as we bypass another house is costly and is inefficient when the main goal is to have most homes connected to village water. Installing a water main along the entire street is a unified urban plan. Another option is to wait for another SSA, as we just spoke, which would spread.
Could you slow down just a little bit? You're
Sure.
leaning into the microphone so close it's hard to understand.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Another option is to wait for another SSA, which would spread the cost of water improvements more equitably. To implement this, it would be multiple years for a decision, plus years more to contract and build. There is no assurance the SSA will be approved. Based on two prior SSA efforts, Schaumburg did not find sufficient homeowner support for the city water. Waiting for an SSA is likely to cost $30,000 in property tax and maintenance for an unknown outcome, and with no ability to live there while waiting. This is over 1.5 times the cost of the well, and the outcome does not guarantee water to the property. I don't believe forcing these costs is the intent of the board, but it is how it could turn out without a variance. I do not want any detriment to the village, but I would agree to reasonable riders on the property requiring the following: a vote by the owner of the property for the village water on all SSAs, connection to the village water when available, and lastly, payment for any specific costs of connection and well removal. The entire neighborhood was built with wells. 2 doors down from our property, the address of 1295 Laurel was built in 2001 and is served today by a well. A vote to deny imposes a disproportionately high cost to one owner, which was not imposed on any other household in the neighborhood. A vote to approve the variance indicates support for minimizing and fairly sharing costs across its residents. It also supports the long-term direction of the village water for every resident at an acceptable cost. Please approve a variance.
Thank you. When was the SSA put in, do you recall?
2007, yeah, I think, 2007.
Okay. So that's how the one managed to get in there in 2001 without, because there was no water lines there at the time, so it was wells were still acceptable at that point. Once the SSA went in, it was indicated to every homeowner, whether they tied in or not, that their wells would no longer be usable for anything other than outside service, or if they didn't have a well, such as a vacant lot, that they would not be able to build one at that point in time. So it was explained to everyone that once that water went through a certain portion, that if they didn't opt in, so to speak, and they wanted to later, there was the potential of them paying a cost for it, or looking at doing another SSA to cover it. So there is a section of this subdivision that decided not to. They took the sewer pretty much, but did not take the well portion for Laurel Lane and Monterey, and with the full understanding that when it did come time, they would be would face this situation that you're in now. So I think that's where we're at now. If we allow you to put a well in, we've got everyone else in there that could come back and say the same thing. They could say, hey, my well's gone out, I need to put in a new well, and you allowed that person to do it, why can't I do it?
But you can make it clear that there will be a rider, that we will be an automatic yes for city water.
Well, that's what's out there now. That's what was explained at that time when that SSA was done in 2007 was, if your well goes out, you need to tie in the sewer to city water. And that was, I mean, it was explained and sent by certified mail to every owner of the properties along there.
Sure, but alongside Laurel Lane, Schaumburg wasn't able to sufficiently have a majority vote. So we're kind of stuck. I'm kind of like, it's like a well lock instead of a land lock. I'm surrounded by wells.
Yeah. Unfortunately, your mother didn't take up on that, which would have been great as vacant property. Her tax rate would have been next to nothing to pay for that, to have the water line run down there.
Well, at the same time, just to give exposure, she was retired and living on a disability, and so she was just focused on paying taxes on that property.
Understood. Open comments from the board. Anyone? Trustee Sullivan?
And Brian, 1295 Laurel, what year was that built?
I don't know. I don't have the records here.
What year
We
did
can
you
certainly
say it
check
was?
it. and
Oh, it
see
was built in 2001.
2001.
I kind of.
I don't think, did we let that be built? Was that still unincorporated where it was built at that time?
The entire time we are Schaumburg.
I don't know. We'd have to research it further.
It would have been, no, it was incorporated.
It was
Incorporated, yeah. We've owned the property for 43 years, so kind of
Yeah,
know.
if this is 1312, that was 1200, that would be
Across the street.
certainly incorporated in the village. But it was not, there was no SSA in place, there was no city sewer and water in that entire subdivision at that point in time. So wells were still allowed and acceptable at that point. Trustee Kozak.
Back in '7, when this was all materializing, each particular lot or address had the right to accept or decline, and we have written signatures on whether they accepted or denied at that particular time. Do we?
So I think the best way to answer that is that a survey was conducted, and the results of that survey was presented to the board. We do not have in our records that we can find the actual surveys or return surveys from each of the property owners. So we don't know specifically how each owner voted. We just know what the results of the survey was, and then how the SSA was configured and presented to the board for approval.
But clearly, the SSA was identified based upon those that indicated positive.
That
So-
accepted, yes.
Yeah, that accepted it, and everyone was sent a certified letter as to what was going on. And I know this for a fact because I lived in my former subdivision over in Lexington Fields, went through the same process in the 90s, exactly what is going on here. So I'm well aware of how this process works and what happens as you go through it.
So nobody was in Never Never Land. Everybody knew what was going on at the particular time and had their option to choose yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Her options is to do, we talked a little bit about a recapture.
Yeah, and Mike, I might need some help from you on this. You know, I think if the board, if the final decision of the board is to deny the variation and require the property to be served by village water, the options are for the village to pursue the SSA, and depending on the results of that, move forward to have the village install a water main across this property or perhaps other properties that desire it. If there is not sufficient interest in the SSA, or the village board decides not to pursue that course of action, the petitioner and other property owners could install the water main and share the cost over how many are interested. In conjunction with that, the village could also put in place what's called a recapture ordinance, so that other properties that benefit from that water main in the future and choose to tap in would be required to pay the pro rata share of the cost to the village, which would then be reimbursed to the parties who undertook the project. Those are the two main options as I see them. The third option is what we've talked about already this evening, which is the property owner or a new property owner could undertake the project on their own to provide water service to this particular property, and that could be done with or without a recapture ordinance.
So do you understand a recapture?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So potential is if there's 5 people, let's say, involved, or 5 properties involved, if it's $100,000, potentially each could pay $20,000 towards that. But if they don't pay, you would certainly get that once they end up having to tap into that line. They would not be able to get that service of water without paying that fee.
They or a successor
Or a
owner.
successor,
Right, that's
yeah.
right.
I'm still pretty young.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
No.
correct.
No, it's just my concern is the uncertainty, the time, and the money.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right.
That's all. The variances, I would think would be a critical point at this time to actually build a house there at this point in time.
And Mike or Julie or Lance, if there's any other options that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to come to the podium and offer them. I want to try and help resolve the situation as best we can. So.
Yeah.
We think you summarized the options.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And the recapture is an effective tool. I mean, you wouldn't have to enforce that yourself. The village would pass an ordinance and would declare the recapture, and there'd be increased cost the longer someone waited, because so you'd recover that eventually, and no one would be able to tap in and get the appropriate permits without paying it.
Right.
Other questions, comments from the board? Anything else?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay. So this item did come before us. The motion is to deny, so I'm looking for.
Would be a
either-
motion to accept the recommendation to deny the variation
Or
to
anything,
the subdivision.
anything different as to what this board feels necessary. So look for a motion.
Well, I feel that, just to accept this denial is basically not, I got a feeling it's not what the board really wants to do. I mean, I think the board really wants to get this resolved in some matter with care and concern. And I think some of the options with the recapture, I'm not sure how we would state that kind of motion. But I know, like, you know, establishing another SSA, you know, you're talking about design and construction and giving them numbers. My understanding, it could take a couple of years for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the level of interest. And again, I don't want to speak for the members of the board, but I think what we're saying is that there are other preferred alternatives here that we'd like to explore before we consider a variation. And so while we're denying it or recommending denial at this point, it's with the understanding that we're going to pursue some of these other options and then report back. And if those aren't feasible for one reason or another, the board can reconsider the variation of that.
Okay.
But I think we
understand
understood
that, okay.
from the discussion at committee that there was interest in pursuing another special service area for this area. I think even, Mike, you reported there would be some benefit to the village of looping the water main in this area. So it's not like the cost would be fully imposed on the property owners. The village could share in the cost of that because of that public benefit. So we just want to explore that further, I think, before we resort to this particular
So
option.
then why don't we defer this for 30 days and give staff a chance?
Well, this motion is just denying the variation.
Variation.
I
They can move
understand that.
forward after we deny this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
My understanding.
Correct. And you really can't do anything about a recapture now. You would need to know the numbers. They would have to have a commitment to do the work themselves. You'd have to have all the backup for that, and only then could you pass the ordinance.
Correct. Okay.
So denying it now is not stopping the process.
Correct. It's not like something with prejudice in the way that denying a variation might be, where they can't do anything. And the
It's not a
village
dead-
is,
it's not a
and
dead end.
and as the manager indicated, the staff is moving forward on its own to try to see if it can work, and the owners can move forward if they end up being interested. If they talk to some of their neighbors, they can do a private project, and staff is committed that the village would recommend the use of the recapture ordinance in order to help recoup those costs, so people don't get a windfall who just sat around and did nothing while their neighbors spent the money to put the main there, and then they get, it's a free main later when ultimately, everybody's going to have to hook up to a water system. Wells, at some point, are going to be banned in the county, period, so.
Trustee Bischke?
I was just curious, do we have a high-level estimate of what the survey timeline would take to gauge the level of interest in the neighborhood for another SSA?
I don't know, 90 days? I mean, it really depends on how quickly people respond and how much follow-up we have to do. Mike, what you think?
I would agree at a minimum 90, if probably, in all reality, almost double that by the time you get people responding, follow-up, with those that haven't responded.
I mean, it's a smaller group than what the original SSA was designed, which came from Roselle all the way over to even almost over to Plum Grove Road was the original
Monterey
discussion.
and
So
all
there was a lot of
bigger.
homes in there. So this is just a much smaller area with Laurel Lane and Monterey, and even potentially could take people some knocking on doors to help move it along. But I would certainly say 90 days would be at minimum. I would also be curious, my understanding is how it was presented in my old subdivision was when the well ran into problems, such as mine did, which the pump had problems, you had to basically shut it off and then tap into city water. So I hope that's happening and people are not putting new wells in or replacing existing wells. They're not allowed to do that. So new owners might not know that. But anyway, so the motion was
Motion to deny?
to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. But the understanding is to continue to look to see how quickly we can get an SSA done, question through the residents to see if there's some interest in there. Also to work up any potential recapture costs as to what that might be, and then bring that back to Engineering and Public Works for an update. And of course, notify the petitioner of all that going on. Is that correct? Does
That sounds
everybody
right.
understand? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6 ayes, motion carries. Thank you. Next is trustee comments and mentions. Any trustee comments and mentions? No? Understand the Boomers were doing good. If you had an opportunity to go to any of the games, they had, July 4th was highest turnout in, sounds like years.
In league history.
So, league history, okay.
correct.
So, yeah, it was great, just beautiful evenings. Anything further? No? Look for a motion to adjourn, and we need to adjourn into executive session. And I'll let you, village attorney, give us that motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the appropriate motion would be to go into closed session under Section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Roll,
No,
roll,
I'm sorry,
roll
got to do a roll call for this one, okay.
Trustee Bishke.
Aye.
Trustee Madey.
Aye.
Trustee Dunham.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Trustee Clare.
Aye.
Trustee Kozak.
Aye.
Okay, and we'll adjourn to upstairs conference.
Going upstairs.
Yes, okay.